All right. What's up, guys? This is Steve on the NDO Podcast. Today, I have Ron Wilson, parent of Hayley Wilson, who I train, longtime stag. We're both stags up. And, yep, I got it too. But I'm doing a different podcast episode today. I'm going to have him interview me. He actually brought the idea to me, and he thought it would be fun. And I was just like, let's go. Let's do it. And so he told me he has questions for me. He hasn't mentioned them to me, so it's gonna be, completely flowing, natural, and, we're gonna go for it. So, but how's everything going, Ron?
It's going all right, and we really appreciate you maintaining Hayley's training during the quarantine. So thank you.
No problem. It's my pleasure. All right, so let's,
So
with you. Yeah, go ahead.
So I'll just quickly a little backstory. Ron Wilson, also a Fairfield U grad, been following the Stags for a long time. Steve's been training my older daughter for about 4 years now. We ran into Steve at Chelsea Piers a few years ago, and we talked about doing some training and took off from there. So Steve is a former D1 player at Fairfield U. He's got a very interesting story there that we'll get to, and he's the owner of No Days Off Training. So let's start at the beginning. When did you start playing, and who had the greatest influence on you as a player?
Wow. Okay. So I believe I started playing when I was like 5 or 6 years old. I actually have I don't know where it is. Actually, I'm going to bring it here really quickly. So ignore the drawing. My little brother drew on this a long time ago, but this is me. He drew on the face. But
Okay.
This was my first year playing organized basketball. This was 98, so I was 6.
Wow.
But I was naturally I was ahead of kids that I was playing with, according to my dad and mom, and so it was just something I was just naturally good at. And, I don't remember much when I was young in terms of me practicing. But, once I got to probably like middle school, I decided I wanted to play in college. So it was just at a young age, I just stuck to it.
And was there anybody, family member, coach, sibling, friend, like was there one person who really got you kind of inspired to start playing?
Not really. I think it was my dad, to be honest. He would go to the park, and sometime when I was younger, I would watch him play. I remember that. And when we used to go to New York sometimes, or we used to go in Stanford by Scalzi Park. And then obviously when I got older, I got to, be able to play with him here and there. And, he's the one who kind of like stuck it to me in terms of just like hard work, dedication. And, it took a little bit of time for it to stick, but I was like mainly my middle school years when I was going through that change and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And then by high school, it was just second nature to me in terms of working hard.
So before we get to the rest of your background, just for fun, I want to ask, who was your favorite player that you admired as a kid, and who is your current favorite player?
Okay, so this is crazy. So the first NBA game I ever remember catching a glimpse at was that 97, 98 season, Kobe Bryant. It was on like Sunday. It was like a Sunday afternoon or something, and they had the Lakers versus Chicago Bulls on TV, and they were comparing Jordan and Kobe. And everybody, I heard the name Michael Jordan. We've talked about it. I used to be like, I remember I used to say I want to be bald like Michael Jordan when I was young, but thank goodness I'm not there yet. But Kobe Bryant, I never really watched Michael Jordan. I just heard his name all the time. But that was the first game I watched, and I kind of like really enjoyed it. And then from there, by 2000, when I was starting to get more into basketball, I just stuck to Kobe. I would wear number 8 all the time. And, he was one of those guys that I throughout from 2000 through 2000 and probably about 14, 15, I was sick. Well, I mean, he retired in 2016, but I kind of like, in terms of my interest and how I played, I kind of shifted to Steph Curry. So probably about in 2008, I became a Steph Curry fan when he was at Davidson, and just watching him being 6'2", and they said he was like 190, but he looked like he was like 165. And seeing, that's what he looked like when watching him play. But he was very skinny. Also, they had really baggy jerseys. So just watching that and seeing him dominate like Duke, was it Georgetown? Yeah, Georgetown. High major powers, and him at a mid-major doing all this, that kind of stuck with me because he was an underdog, and that's kind of been my mentality throughout my whole life. Just people not expecting me to be a good basketball player, and that kind of stuck with me in 2008 when I was at St. Luke's. So that was my player now per se. So Steph Curry is someone I study a lot now, and then in all honesty, I like Kyrie's ball handling, shifting ability. So I would say those two players right now.
Nice. I remember I saw Michael Jordan play against the Knicks at the Garden once, and it's the only time I saw him play in person, and I just couldn't believe how fast he was. I thought he was, I'm going to say, to me back then when I saw him, he appeared to be somehow twice as fast as anybody. I don't know.
I could only imagine. I mean, watching the Jordan docuseries, it brought back to life what he was doing. And I mean, we as a younger generation, we see his clips on like YouTube, but like watching them, and they had the All Access crew, and watching him do it and how they responded to him was just, like you said, it's just amazing. It's crazy.
Yeah. So you just alluded to St. Luke's and high school years. My next question was, I know you played at both, I think it was West Hill, right?
Yeah.
West Hill, and then transferred to St. Luke's during high school. What was it like switching schools, and how did that affect your development as a player?
So I think that it was a great move. I initially was going to go to St. Luke's right out of middle school. So what happened was the coach at the time was recruiting me. He was the coach for St. Luke's, but he also, the AAU program he was with was the New York Gauchos, which was at the time was one of the top programs in the country. He actually coached Kemba Walker and like a bunch of other guys that were really good. They all went high major, mid-major D1 schools, and he wanted me to go play for the Gauchos. But things happen, life happens. So I ended up going to AITE, and playing for West Hill. But my freshman year was wiped out. I fractured my ankle, missed basketball season. I was able to get back for AAU, but I wasn't the same player. So I got cut when I tried out because I was slower. I was coming back from a pretty serious injury. I have a metal plate in my leg for the rest of my life. So it's kind of
still.
Yeah.
And did that happen in a practice or in a game?
That was actually football. I played football my freshman year. So yeah, it was one of those freak accidents. Went up for an interception. Supposedly my teammate ran into me. His helmet hit my leg in the midair, and then I landed on it really bad. And they thought it was a sprain. Went to the ER, and the bone was like, boom. Ooh. Yeah. So it was one of those. It was just a freak accident, and it put me back a little bit. So fast forward, my sophomore year, I put so much time into basketball, and it was still difficult. I didn't have an AAU team my sophomore year. We didn't have a local team, and then so I was just in the gym all summer. I played JV. I got called up to varsity. I just sat the bench for varsity. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to play. And I honestly thought my sophomore year that West Hill team was one of the most talented teams, in a long time.
Similar to Hayley, you guys both got bumped up to varsity postseason but didn't get in.
Yeah. So I mean,
it's exciting though.
Yeah.
As an underclassman, I think it's always exciting just to be in the mix with the varsity players, especially during the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, my mentality was like I was itching to play, and it just never really came up. So going into my junior year, we were talking about transferring because we felt like I should have been playing more as a sophomore. And we revisited a couple private schools. My old AAU coach was the head coach at Kinglow Haywood, and then St. Luke's. And then I did a camp, Brunswick, all boys school, and Greenwich wanted me as well. And we decided St. Luke's because we acted quickest with them. And you know, that summer, that's junior, so my sophomore to my junior year was a big jump in terms of my skill set. I spent so much time in the gym, hours. I can talk about like 10, 12-hour days. My mom would drop me off with the lunch. Me and my friend would get there. We'd do some drills. We'd eat lifts. Then we'd eat our lunch that we brought. And then we'd play pickup till whenever. My dad would come to the gym late, and then we'd go home. And I did that for the summer.
You ended up playing 3 years at St. Luke's, right?
Yes. So when
I saw in the banner in the gym, Steve's got, I think, over 1,200 points there.
Yeah, 1270 something or 1280. I don't know which.
That's a pretty nice honor to see that on the wall.
Yeah, it was nice. My original hope was to break the record on the boys' side, but it just didn't happen. But like I saw that transfer year, I got there. It was a unique year. It was a little bit bumpy, but you know, towards the end of it, it was I started playing much better because I got more comfortable. It was more of a culture shock. The academics was a little more rigorous than public school, you know, and you know, it was different because I was like a 20-minute drive. I would get there early in the morning. School would start at 8. I was there at like 6:45, 7 latest. So I had like an hour to kill. So I'd just work out in the morning, go through the day, and then, you know, I wouldn't leave. We'd have practice till like 8. They changed that now. They don't stay past 6, but we used to have practice till 8. And then I would go home, shower. I had to do some more homework, and it would be repeat. And it was just it was a transition year for me. So
any really special games that you recall that really, you know, stick with you today as really highlight games?
For my first year there, I had my first 30-point game. I think it was against Master School, my first year there. Then my second junior year, so the whole thing with that was, so when I got there, I was like a 3.8 student coming from AIT. I was taking honors AP classes, so I thought I can handle that rigor at St. Luke's. And I got there, and I was doing the work, and I was struggling. So we had a talk I basically went down from, you know, AP classes to honors, and some certain honors to just regular. And it was difficult because it was just like, I was like, well, I'm usually, I know I'm a smarter kid, but this is a little more rigorous than I thought. My basis wasn't the same basis as the kids that were there already, because they were there since like middle school. So they had a better foundation. Anyway, so towards the end of that year, my GPA dropped a whole lot. And we talked about it. It was a big meeting with the headmaster of the school, my college counselor, my guidance counselor, and my basketball coach, along with my dad. And we just talked about it. They were like, look, you get an extra year, you get your grades up, you get an extra year of basketball, and you're more marketable to a lot more schools.
And that, sorry, what were you saying?
Oh, no, and I was just going to say, like, you know, like they said they could have got me to a good school with the grades I had, but they wanted excellence. So they were like pushing for me to do the reclassification, just to get myself more mentally prepared for college.
And that brings us to the next section. How did you end up choosing Fairfield U? And as soon as you knew you were going there, did you always have trying to get on the team in your mind?
Right. So fast forward to like my senior year, I was one of those kids. This is how I am now. You know, I always tell kids, don't be D1 or die. Like, that was my mentality. And I didn't want to go to Division III school. I was contemplating Division II schools, but I just didn't have the interest that I hoped. I did so many camps. I did clinics, email coaches. So like, I reached out to so many people, and it was just difficult. I couldn't get a single bite. And I had a couple D3 schools that really wanted me. But, you know, everybody just, you know, kind of like on the like circuit or whatever, like hoop group and stuff, they kind of wrote me off. And every time I would go there, I'd be playing kids that have offers, and I'm doing really well against them. It's just like, you know, what's wrong with me? And it's just, you know, it's all about timing and stuff. So, but anyway, academically, I was good. So I applied to a bunch of the D3 schools. I got in, and I was looking at schools to walk on at. So that became, that was Marist, Fairfield, and what was the other? There was one other school that I was looking at. I can't remember the other school right now. But the three schools were Clark University, which is the D3. They really wanted me for basketball. Marist, and then Fairfield. And so when I got there, I applied. I got into two. Marist waitlisted me because there was a good solid chance I wanted to go to Marist because I knew they weren't that good, and I knew Fairfield was good. So I was just like, all right. And then Fairfield also offered the most scholarship money and financial aid, and then so that just made the decision a little bit easier. So when I touched foot on campus, I was just like, all right. Emailed the coach because it was the new coach. Cindy Johnson was new that year. The whole staff was just trying to find out tryout dates. I tried to get into the practice gym whenever I could. I introduced myself to some of the guys, and it was just like a whole whirlwind of stuff. And I was just a college freshman, just like, and here's the funny, what people don't know, I never visited Fairfield's campus. I never
went there and signed up.
Never touched foot on campus. I just said, I'm going to go. And hopefully I like it. And
we as my family are big fans, and we first got to recognize you out there as the team manager.
Yep.
That was, I believe, your freshman year, right?
Yep, that was. Go ahead.
That was a great way to get your foot in the door, I think. So during that freshman year as a team manager, did you get in any practices? Did you, talk to the coaches at all about wanting to get more involved as a player?
Yeah, so I specifically remember we'll go in depth. Like, so we had tryouts, right? I'm telling you, I was running. I literally would wake up, there were 8 a.m. classes. I'd wake up. I had 8 a.m.s like twice a week or 3 times a week. I don't know what my schedule was, but I remember I would go out in the morning. I'd run a mile. I didn't do as many sprints, but I would go to the recplex to shoot a little bit. And I was really just trying to be ready for the tryouts. So when I got to the tryout, I was so out of shape. I thought I was in shape. And what ended up happening, he said I made it. We have a walk-on spot taken already. We go take you on as a manager. And you can work your way into being a practice player and work your way up.
Now, I'm just curious, when you said tryout, I think most D1 schools, correct me if I'm wrong, have like 13 scholarship spots usually.
Somewhere around that. It depends. Yeah.
So when you say tryout, the 13 guys are kind of, or the 12 or whatever, are kind of like automatically on. And then at any given year, are there, I don't know, half a dozen guys who are trying to play as walk-ons?
It really depends on the school. I'm assuming bigger schools have bigger turnouts for tryout spots.
Did you have a lot of guys, walk-ons competing with you?
It was about 7 people, I believe. Mm-hmm. 7 people. 2 of them 3 of them. One was a freshman like me, and then the other 2 I met. We were friends. And so, or actually one was one of my best friends, and the other one I met, and he was kind of like a manager, practice player when Cooley was there. So he thought he'd have a in with that. But
And
I think,
when you first signed on as team manager, this was with Sidney Johnson, right?
yes, sir.
So was there kind of like, he said the walk-on spot's taken, but you've got this manager role. Did he upfront tell you like, hey, take the role and, you can get in on the practices? Were you automatically part of the practices, or did you only fill in if there was an injury or what?
So from what I remember, it started off as strictly like managerial duties, but he knew I can play a little bit, right? So
Right.
Whenever there was a need to like for a drill or running or like shooting, like he'd put me in or I'd rebound, and then slowly but surely I was just working my tail off. I would, do whatever I needed to do to get ready and make myself prepared. He did tell me like I said, I'd have an opportunity to become more involved as a practice player and eventually earn stuff and things like that. So I remember, when I got my first practice jersey, practice shorts, I only had one pair. And then I was wearing Adidas because Fairfield's Nike, and my coach at the time, Tyson Wheeler, gave me some of his hand-me-downs. So, I was wearing those. So I looked more official and as a part of the team.
Right. And do team managers get paid?
No, we did not. It's
Okay.
it depends. Well, like at the higher schools, they have the grad managers, grad assistants, sorry.
Right.
Or graduate managers. So they basically, are doing roles in order to get a coaching job potentially next year as a reference, or even hop on the squad, the coaching staff at that school, depending on their situation. And so like I said, I didn't have that mentality. I was just like, I'm going to eat dirt. I'm going to do whatever I got to do, and I'm going to make this happen. And you weren't going to tell me anything else. Like, that's the kind of mentality I had. I don't know why I had it. I honestly, I don't know. It was just, I was stubborn to make sure that I was going to play Division I basketball.
Now, you said you started off strictly in the managerial duties, literally getting the waters and towels and everything at the games. At what point did you become a, quote unquote practice player? And then at what point did you actually get into a game?
So I would say like about mid-year.
Freshman year?
Mid-year, yeah, I started practicing more.
With the guys.
I remember, so this is I don't know what date it was, but I remember the first time I got in on defense. Right, I had to play defense.
Was this freshman year?
This was freshman year. And
okay, so you actually got in a game.
Oh no, not a game. This was practice.
Oh, a practice.
I'm going to work my way up. And then
okay.
So I remember my first practice with them, and I stole the ball. I don't know if it was from Desmond Wade or Derek. They threw a bad pass, and I intercepted it, and I thought I was gone. I went up for a layup, and then next thing I just hear was like a clapping against the backboard. I'm like, I didn't make the layup. I was like, what just happened? And Mo Barrow pinned my shot against the backboard. And I was just like, wow.
Welcome to the big time.
Yeah, welcome to D1 basketball. And then literally the next play, I was running offense, so they were practicing defense, and I just kept getting stripped. Like Dez was, I don't know.
He was quick. He was quick. I remember.
He was quick, and my handles were really suspect, and he just would pluck me, and then coach had to take me out because they couldn't run anything. I was like, damn, I really got to step my game up. So literally, like after every practice, I would work on ball handling. So fast forward, so I was a manager all the way through. We lost in the MAC championship that year. We made it to the CIT. People got hurt. and numbers wise we were low. So that's when I first earned my jersey. I got my first game I suited up was Fairfield versus Yale in the CIT. And
Is this at the very end of the freshman year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we made it to the semifinals. We lost to Mercer that year.
Yes, I went to those games.
Yeah, we beat Manhattan at home, and then we had Mercer the next game, and we lost. But I was suited up for all those games, which was awesome.
And then, did you get into any games as a freshman?
Yeah.
No. But hey, suiting up is a big step.
Exactly. It was a step in the right direction.
Now, that season ends. You have now gotten yourself a jersey. You've been sitting on the bench. Does the coach have a conversation with you at the end of that season or over the summer to say, hey, you're in the mix now?
From what I remember, we didn't. It was nothing from what I recall of a conversation of that nature. It was just like, keep working hard and we'll see what happens.
And then tell me what was your sophomore year fall, did you start off still in a manager role at that point, or were you on the team?
At that point, I was on the team. That summer, I was coming to summer workouts. So like I was working in an internship position in Stanford, and I was lucky enough that my dad was my manager and my boss. So he would let me take my lunch breaks, and I would drive up to Fairfield for literally like an hour and a half, and then drive back and work till like 6 or 7 to make up the hours. Or I would get in early so I can leave, and obviously I can just get back in time. But that kind of helped me solidify myself as a walk-on.
And then tell me about the first game you got into. Do you remember who it was against? And do you remember how it felt getting on the court for the first time?
I want to say my first game I was put into was against Milwaukee, University of Milwaukee, or
on the road.
No, this one was at home.
This
was like one of the first games. We were really good that year. What year was that? That was 20. That was Derek Needham's. That was Derek and Colin and Dez's senior year. Yeah, so that was my first time I got in.
What was that like?
It was a great moment. I was nervous, but I was just like ready to shoot, because that was at that point I knew what my role was. They weren't gonna let me dribble, so shooting was my thing.
Did they give you a heads up? Did any of the coaches give you a heads up? We might try to get you in this game.
Not until later, when I actually started playing more so towards mid-season.
So that Milwaukee game, like just out of the blue, they're like, "Hey, Johnston, you're in."
Yeah, it was like we were up by a lot, so it was one of those things. When you're up a lot, they usually put the walk-ons in. So
okay, gotcha. Now, I've always wanted to ask you this: what was it like playing at Duke, at Cameron, the Cameron Crazies? Were you nervous? Were you like, "Hey, I'm just gonna have fun. I'm not gonna worry about it"? What's the atmosphere like as a player visiting that court?
So first off, it was just like we got to Duke. I'm like, we're really at Duke right now. This is really about to happen. Like, and like you could sense it. It was just like, all right, this is not gonna be. It's not gonna be an easy one at all. And deep down in my heart and soul, I believed that we could win that game. And so I was just like, hey, let's get it. Let's make this happen.
And is this your junior or senior season?
This was my senior year.
Okay.
So they have a loaded squad. Looking back at that, I tell everybody asks, oh, you played Duke? I was like, yeah, they won the national championship that year. They had, I think, about 7 NBA players from that team go to the NBA. 7 players went to the NBA. So if not more. But anyway, it was just surreal. I was just shooting. We had a shoot around there the day before, and it was just like, wow, this is Coach K's court. This is the guy who, one of the winningest coaches, best basketball minds in the game of basketball history. And it was just like, holy crap. And I was completely nervous. I remember I took the first shot of the game, and it hit the backboard.
Hey.
I was just like, man, I had to get that out. Man. That was it was tough. I was open too. I was just you know, and thinking back on it, I definitely played a little more nervous than I wish I did. I did have 2 points, and you know, we ended up losing by 50. But you know, it was unforgettable.
It's an experience, though.
Yeah. Never forget it.
And maybe that was it, but I don't know. I was going to ask you, what was your most memorable game as a Stag?
There was a couple, actually. There was my first major game. So going back to what you asked, like if I had a conversation with coach, like they're going to put me in, back to my sophomore year, we had a talk after one practice. He's like, hey, he was like, Johnston. I was like, yeah, coach. He was like, hey, if I call you tomorrow, be ready to play. And we literally played Marist the next game, and I got in. I was like 3 for 4 from 3. I had like 3 assists, 2 rebounds. That one I was nervous because I knew I was going to play. And I remember the first possession I got in, we got a turnover, and I trip over my own foot and I fall on the court. I get up like nothing happened and kept running. So it was that was probably one of my most memorable games because it was a significant game for us. And that was good. And then I had a couple of good games my senior year, but you know, that one was fun, I think. And then I got hurt the middle of my senior year, and from there I just wasn't the same after that. I had like back-to-back games. I had 14 and then 15 points, and I felt like I was finally turning the corner, and then boom, I hurt my back. And I just wasn't the same defensively. I wasn't the same moving. I wasn't the same shooting. I just lost a lot of my confidence. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
So now we move past Fairfield U, and I know that I believe you played 1 season professionally in Canada, right?
Yes.
How did that level of play in Canada compare to D1 U.S. college ball? Like, what would happen if your Fairfield U team had played against your Canadian team?
I think it would have been a pretty solid game because we have a lot of talent. I'll put it like this: if the Stags with that talent that we had the offense we were running as a pro system, I think talent-wise we would have done better. Just because you get more freedom at the pro level. So you can go one-on-one. If you have a mismatch, it's like play through the mismatch. You can call a ball screen from whenever you need one, or you know, guys have a really good understanding of the game. The difference with the league that I played in was it was its first year in existence, and a lot of those guys were hungry. And I've never seen so many guys just attack each other. There was nobody that would like. Every practice was a fight.
Wow.
Not like a fist fight, but like guys we can go at each other. I remember I was fighting for playing time, and the guy in front of me he played in the G League or the D League at the time, and he came here. And me and him were similar in terms of playing style, but he had the green light from the coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never played somebody that would shoot so unconsciously. Like, he was just a volume shooter. He took a lot of shots. If he missed, you'd get mad. But when he's hot, he can put up 50 points. It's one of those things. So,
wow.
You know, going against him every day in practice was tough. It made me play defense, to be quite honest, and it was tough.
Yeah.
But like I said, if we would go against each other, it would be a good game. But I think that team the pro team obviously would win because there were a couple of guys that were just skill-wise were high, really high, and can knock down shots from anywhere. And defensively, when they wanted to, they can lock up.
Right. So last summer, I think it was last summer, you were in China as a trainer, right?
Yes.
What are some highlights from that, and how did the players and the culture there differ from here in the U.S.?
That's a great question. So that it was an amazing experience. I love it. I want to go back on everything when everything's clean and good and okay. But they just, the culture there, they love basketball, and it's they respect it so much. They're very respectful of everybody, and they're so indebted to you. Like the guy I was working with would literally take us out to dinner, which is like, thank you so much for what you're doing for the guys, for our team. And it was just like, it was very heartfelt, and it was an emotional, like, thank you.
And most of the players you worked with, did you have translators there, or did most of them speak English?
I had a translator, and sometimes the translators weren't good. So it was some of the kids spoke pretty okay English, but it was they were all good kids, and they worked so hard. Like if they had the proper coaching, in all honesty, if they've had that's what I think they're missing at the lower levels there. If they had the coaching, they have numbers. You're going to find athletes, right? But without that proper coaching, that proper guidance, they won't be able to prosper. So like me being there, I was able to do a lot, and in terms of skill development wise. And then when I would watch them play, I'm like, what is this? Like, coach, I mean, I tried to talk to the coach. I was like, you can't do that. Like the coach in me came out, and they literally, everybody came over and listened. I had the translator. I was just saying like, hey, I drew up a play. I was like, you got to occupy this space. This is how you beat a zone, Right. It was just like an X's and O's thing. And the area I was in, the teams that I work with were all like 13 years in a row champions. So middle school, they didn't lose. High school, girls and boys didn't lose. The JV team, they always recruit kids. So
That's cool.
The system is a little different, and the cultures, they're all very like hardworking. So that's the one thing I can say.
So now we fast forward to today. No Days Off Training is your training company. As a parent, I can attest to the fact that we haven't missed a beat during the pandemic. Coach Steve's been running Zoom classes. Obviously, that's a difficult format. It's hard to even find access to a hoop at this time. And instead of talking about the challenges of the online format, what are some positives you found, that you weren't expecting when you started off virtually?
So the positives is right now, like today I announced like next week's going to be free. I'm doing free workouts. I'm trying to ramp up my online awareness. So I want to reach out to more kids and globally. And the best way to do that is online. I worked with a guy named DJ Sackman, and we had a chat, and he was just saying like, hey, I'm doing really well right now with this virtual training. There's so many kids you can reach all across the world, and so it's just about just putting yourself out there. And right now I've optimized my website. I've made it really, simple and easy for parents to use now, which I didn't have when I first made it, like probably, late last year. Now it's like I'm really, making it easy, and hopefully it kind of gets some traction over the next couple of months. But my plan is to, once everything opens up, I want to be able to do online training, and then also my in-person training. The in-person training, I want to be able to focus more on being able to go over game situations and stuff. Online here, I like that you can coach somebody through online telling them what to do. You can tell them if they have access to a hoop, you can say, hey, do these moves, boom, go finish, or boom, boom, get into your shot. So in terms of instruction, you can still do the same thing. In terms of correcting, it's a little more difficult.
Right. Well,
yeah.
I was just going to say, as a parent, some of the things I like, first of all, we used to do it once a week in person. Now we're doing 3 times a week, which I think is just good to, make sure the kids are practicing more often. And, you make all the sessions viewable, that you record them all. So if my daughter had trouble with a certain tennis ball drill or a 2-ball drill or something, we'll pull it up on the Google Drive and, she can redo the whole workout.
Yeah.
And she can see herself. She can see, oh, I'm not low enough. I'm not wide enough. My drop step's not right. It's helpful. When you're doing it in person at the park, you don't really see yourself. So, I wasn't sure how it would go with the Zoom, but I think it went really well. And like I said, some positives I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's the other thing, like, I wanted to incorporate too, eventually as a package I want to eventually get to, is just like a mentorship package where I'm able to break down video. We get video, and obviously it would cost a little more. I'd have my guy come record the workout, and then we can break down what we were doing and things like that. That's because it depends on the kids. Certain kids are more visual than others. Some have to can listen and just see things really quickly and pick it up. Other people have to break it down a little bit more. So it really depends on the player and how they learn. And then that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. So if they're audio visual learners, you got to know what is what. But obviously basketball is all visual, but just how you go about it and how you break it down for people is where I think good trainers can be great trainers, if they're able to break down movements or things like that to anybody at any level. So,
well, I mean, I can't believe the change in Hayley's ball handling skills has gone, through the roof in the last year. And she went from being kind of reserved kind of player who didn't really want to try to create on her own, to stepping into the starting point guard role on her JV team. And, she wouldn't have been ready for that if we hadn't done all the work we did.
Yeah. And, for me, like I always talk about like my selfish goals for a player that I get really, close with, and I work with them, and I just want them to take it to another level. But at the end of the day, it's about instilling the confidence and understanding like, hey, you're working hard. You're not working hard for no reason. You're doing this because you have the capability to do it in a game situation. So just don't think we're doing these things for no reason. We're building your confidence to do these crazy moves to make, and then we also do simple moves so you understand your body can do both at any given moment.
Right. So, well, thanks, Coach Steve. We made it through my questions.
No, that was great.
And anybody watching, as a parent, I can say you're not going to find a more dedicated trainer than this guy right here.
Appreciate that.
Definitely check it out. I think some content's on YouTube you can check out, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to put up more. We have videos. We have to edit them. I want to get more drills up for people, and obviously I always post drills of kids I train on Instagram. I put it on my Facebook group for those who are on Facebook, No Days Off Training LLC, and in my Instagram page for No Days Off Training is NDO Training. So for whoever's listening to this or watching this, you can check out that stuff. And if you're interested, like I said, next week I have a free workout I'm doing that because I want to give back to the community right now. We have a lot going on, and I just want to be able to help people just kind of decompress and just, just have a good time. Obviously we're going to get better, and then we'll just, keep the conversation light and have fun with it. So that's the most important thing with basketball for me, is just make sure players are having fun getting better.
All right. Well, we'll be there.
All right. That sounds good.
And go Stags.
Go Stags. All right. I'll see you on.
All right. Thanks, Coach Steve.
All right. No problem.
Bye.
Bye.